The first human ambassador, a Deathworlder among stars, Sci-Fi HFY story. The human ship moved slowly through the open space of the galactic station. It was smaller than most vessels around it and showed clear signs of heavy reinforcement. Thick hull plates, visible repair lines, and heat marks told a story of survival rather than beauty. Inside the ship stood Aaron Hale, the first human ambassador, watching the massive structure grow larger through the main window. Aaron was not a soldier, at least not anymore. He was chosen because he could stay calm when others panicked. He had lived through storms that tore cities apart, food shortages that tested patience, and long years where humanity wondered if it would ever be welcome beyond its own star. His face showed no fear now, but his heart carried the weight of every human who waited for this moment. The galactic station was older than most human nations. It circled a pale blue star and held thousands of species within its many rings. It was known as the place where wars ended or began with words. For centuries, no human had been allowed inside. Earth was marked as a death world, a place where life struggled every day just to exist. Most species believed nothing intelligent could come from such a world without becoming violent or unstable. As the docking clamps locked into place, Aaron took a slow breath. The air pressure inside the ship was higher than standard galactic levels, something humans needed. The station had agreed to adjust one corridor for him, but only barely. Even that small change had caused weeks of debate among the assembly. When the main door opened, Aaron stepped forward alone. He wore simple, dark clothing with no weapons or symbols of rank. His hands were open at his sides. A wide corridor stretched ahead, filled with watching eyes. Tall beings with smooth skin, short beings covered in fine fur, and others whose forms were hard to define all stood at a distance. Many wore breathing masks or suits. Several security drones hovered quietly near the ceiling. Aaron could feel the gravity shift slightly as he walked. The station gravity was lighter than Earth's, and each step felt easier than it should have. He knew from reports that some species found even this level painful. A few guards shifted when they noticed how naturally he moved, how his balance never failed. Whispers moved through the crowd. Some voices were filled with curiosity, others with fear. That is the human, so small, from the death world. He walks like nothing affects him. Aaron kept his eyes forward. He had trained for this moment for years. He reminded himself that fear often came from not understanding. If he reacted with anger or pride, everything would end before it began. At the end of the corridor, a large doorway opened into the assembly chamber. The room was vast and shaped like a wide circle. Platforms rose in layers, each designed for different species. Light came from above, soft and even with no shadows. In the center stood a single platform, empty and waiting. Aaron stepped onto it. A deep, calm voice filled the chamber. The session is now in order. The representative of Earth has arrived. Hundreds of eyes focused on Aaron. Some platforms shifted as beings adjusted their posture. Others remained completely still. A figure seated high above spoke next. Its voice was smooth but cold. "Human representative, you are permitted to speak. Know that this meeting does not imply trust." Aaron nodded once. "I understand." He looked around the chamber. "I stand here not to demand anything. I stand here to listen, to learn, and to offer a path forward. Humanity knows we are new to this community. We know our world has a reputation." A low sound moved through the chamber, something like quiet agreement mixed with doubt. Our planet is harsh, Aaron continued. Strong storms, heavy gravity, dangerous life, and long history of conflict. We did not choose these conditions. We adapted to them. A tall being with layered eyes leaned forward. Adapted how? By cooperation, Aaron said simply. By rules. By learning when to fight and when to stop. We failed many times. We paid for those failures. Before he could continue, a sharp tone cut through the chamber. Enough. Warning lights flashed along the walls. A loud signal echoed, followed by the voice of the station system. Environmental instability detected. Section 12 pressure failure. The chamber erupted into movement. Several delegates stood or retreated. Security drones moved quickly toward exits. Some species reacted with visible panic, their breathing systems flashing alerts. Aaron felt the air shift. His training kicked in without thought. Pressure loss meant danger for many here. He turned toward the nearest guard. Where is Section 12? The guard hesitated. Human, you are to remain on the platform. Another alert sounded, louder this time. A section of the chamber wall shimmered, showing a live feed of a corridor where panels had ruptured. Air was venting into space. Several delegates were trapped inside, struggling to move. Aaron did not wait. He stepped off the platform. Shouts followed him. Stop! Unauthorized movement! Human! Return! He ignored them and ran. The lighter gravity let him move faster than expected. He reached the damaged corridor in moments. The force of escaping air pulled at him, but his heavier body and strong grip kept him grounded. Inside, he saw 3 delegates collapse near a sealed door. One was small and unmoving. Another clawed at its mask in panic. Aaron anchored himself to a support bar and pulled himself forward. Each step was a struggle, but he had trained in worse conditions. He reached the nearest delegate and secured their mask, checking the seal. Then he dragged them toward the emergency door. His muscles burned. His lungs worked hard against the thin air. Alarms screamed around him. Behind him, a panel gave way. The force knocked him to one knee, tearing his sleeve and cutting his arm. Blood floated briefly before being pulled away. Aaron clenched his jaw and kept moving. He reached the door and slammed the manual seal. The pressure equalized slowly. The delegates inside lay still, breathing. Aaron leaned against the wall, chest rising and falling heavily. Security arrived moments later. They stared at him in silence. Back in the assembly chamber, the screen showed everything. No one spoke as they watched the human stand at a place that should have killed him. Injured but alive, focused only on saving others. When Aaron finally returned to the central platform, his arm bandaged and his clothing torn, the chamber was silent. The same cold voice spoke again, quieter now. You acted without permission. Aaron met the speaker's gaze. Lives were at risk. Another voice followed, uncertain. You could have died. Aaron nodded. Yes. A long pause stretched across the chamber. Finally, the first voice spoke again. This session will continue. The human representative has demonstrated unexpected qualities. Aaron stood straight despite the pain. He knew this was only the beginning. Fear still filled the room, but something else had joined it now. Attention, and that, he knew, was the first real step toward being heard. The calm in the assembly chamber did not last long. Just as the delegates began to regain some composure after the emergency, a new alarm rang. This time it came from the station's outer rings. Sensors reported that a storage module housing volatile gases was leaking. Panic rose quickly. Many species had no experience with fast-moving pressure or chemical hazards. They could not survive a sudden toxic cloud. Aaron Hale did not hesitate. The moment the alert sounded, he moved toward the nearest access point. Delegates shouted at him to wait, but he ignored them. Years of living on Earth had trained him to act before thinking, but with thought guiding every movement. He knew hesitation could mean death. He ran through corridors heavier than many here, but his strong muscles allowed him to reach the dangerous area faster than anyone expected. The smell of the gases was sharp even through protective masks. Aaron checked the pressure readings. Any delay could trigger explosions. He saw two small delegates struggling with their masks. Their species could not endure even brief exposure. Aaron lunged forward, holding the first delegate steady while adjusting their mask. The second he grabbed by the arm, pulling toward a safer section. The toxic air pressed on him, his lungs burning, but he did not stop. He could hear alarms ringing and the shouts of security teams running behind, but he only focused on the immediate danger. A panel cracked above, sending sparks toward the gas leak. Aaron grabbed the nearest brace to anchor himself. His sleeve caught fire for a brief second, but he ripped it away and continued his work. One delegate fainted, and he dragged them to a safe area. He adjusted the seals on doors manually, something most species could not attempt without specialized tools. His hands were cut and bleeding, but he kept moving. By the time security arrived, he had stabilized the area enough to prevent disaster. Delegates watched, their wide eyes filled with disbelief. A few whispered that humans must have some strange inner strength, a way of surviving impossible conditions. Others feared that humans might be dangerous because they did not seem afraid of hazards that could kill everyone else. In an instant, the chief overseer of the station finally approached him. "You acted against protocol. Why?" Aaron wiped blood from his arm and replied, "Lives are more important than protocol." The overseer hesitated. No one argued against the logic. Slowly, they turned to the assembly chamber, where hundreds of species waited. News of Aaron's actions had already spread through the station's communication lines. Even those who had doubted Earth's people were now questioning their assumptions. The delegates began to murmur among themselves. Some asked if humans always risked their lives like this. Others questioned whether these actions showed courage or recklessness. Aaron remained quiet, letting the results speak. Later, he returned to the central platform of the assembly chamber. His clothing was torn, his hands cut, and his hair damp with sweat. Yet he stood tall and calm. The silence in the room was nearly complete. For the first time, no one seemed ready to speak. Every species was aware that this human had survived situations that would have killed most of them. A young delegate from a small, fast-moving species finally spoke. Their voice shook with a mixture of fear and awe. "How can one survive so many dangers at once?" Aaron looked directly at them. "I do not see them as dangers. I see them as challenges to solve. Humans learn to adapt because we have no choice. We survive because survival is part of who we are." Some delegates nodded slowly. Others whispered warnings, unsure if humans should be trusted or feared. The chamber's tension remained high. The assembly had never seen a representative behave in this way. No one had expected a Deathworlder to act so calmly in the face of multiple disasters. Suddenly, another alert interrupted the conversation. This time it came from the observation decks outside the station. Something massive had been detected moving in the outer system. Its size was difficult to estimate, but it was larger than anything the assembly had ever encountered. Sensors showed no weapon signature, no movement in the usual patterns, just an enormous mass approaching. Delegates panicked, rushing to their stations. The assembly chair called for immediate communication with the fleets. Aaron stood still, observing. His life on Earth had taught him that fear often made creatures weaker. He focused on what they needed to do next, not what could harm him personally. The chair spoke over the chamber. All species must prepare. Unknown object approaching. Sensors unable to identify its nature. Evacuations may be required. Several species began arguing loudly. Some demanded immediate defense measures. Others feared provoking the object. The situation grew chaotic. Aaron raised his hand. The room quieted enough to hear him. "We cannot act from fear," he said firmly. "We must observe, plan, and respond carefully. Panic will cost more lives than any unknown threat." A small group of delegates glanced at him skeptically. Yet his words carried weight. Perhaps because he had already survived dangers that should have killed him, they considered that he might know what he was talking about. Aaron moved quickly to coordinate with the station's emergency teams. He suggested securing key points and maintaining observation. "Send scouting probes first," he told them. "Do not engage directly. Gather information. Then we respond." Some species resisted. They wanted to attack immediately. Aaron argued logically, pointing out that an attack without understanding could destroy the station. He moved from platform to platform, helping other species understand the risks. The pace of events was fast, but he seemed unshaken. Hours passed as the unknown object approached. Sensors showed it was not alive in any way recognizable, yet it reacted to certain signals. The assembly debated whether it was dangerous or intelligent. Delegates grew more anxious with each passing minute. Aaron worked tirelessly, coordinating observation teams and communicating calmly with species unfamiliar with human problem-solving. Slowly, the station gained a sense of control. The unknown object had not yet attacked. No sudden movement had destroyed any section. The calm, deliberate approach Aaron promoted prevented mistakes. By the end of the day, the object hovered outside the station. Long-range sensors finally revealed details. A massive, dark structure covered with panels that shifted like armor. It did not match any known species design. Its energy output was enormous, but it showed no aggression yet. The assembly breathed slightly easier, but Aaron remained cautious. He had learned that appearances could be deceiving. A sudden movement or wrong decision could turn curiosity into destruction. He spoke to the chamber, his voice steady, echoing across species. "This is the moment where we must prove ourselves, not by fighting immediately, but by acting with knowledge and precision. Fear will not protect us. Preparation will." Several delegates, still fearful, nodded. Others remained silent, uncertain. Yet Aaron had changed the mood in the chamber. He had shown that humans did not act recklessly, even if they could endure extreme danger. They could lead when others faltered. Late in the cycle, the assembly voted to allow Aaron to oversee the initial response to the unknown object. The vote was narrow but unanimous among those who understood the stakes. Many feared the unknown, but they now trusted the human who had survived their own station's dangers with calm resolve. Aaron prepared for the first probe mission. He personally checked the systems and went over every detail with the teams. Unlike others, he did not simply rely on technology. He understood pressure, gravity, and survival in ways that machines alone could not measure. When the probe launched, the unknown object responded with movement. It shifted slowly but purposefully. No weapons fired. No signals were sent to provoke attack. Sensors recorded everything, feeding data back to the assembly. Aaron analyzed the information immediately. Its patterns suggested intelligence, but not like any known species. It responded to light, sound, and energy in ways that were careful and deliberate. The probe returned without damage. Aaron turned to the assembly. "This is more than a threat," he said. "It is a presence that watches and reacts. We must not assume hostility. We must learn before we decide to act." A mixture of relief and suspicion filled the chamber. Some species whispered that humans were too cautious. Others agreed that hasty action could destroy everyone. As night approached on the station, Aaron stood on the observation deck. He looked at the massive object hanging silently against the stars. For him, it was another challenge, another test of patience, courage, and intellect. Humanity had survived far worse on their own planet. Here, they would have to survive with allies who did not yet trust them fully. Aaron's hand rested lightly on the railing. He knew this was only the beginning of what humanity would face in the galaxy. Yet he also knew that humans could endure. They could adapt, and they could act when others hesitated. The first human ambassador had not yet spoken his full message to the galaxy, but already the galaxy had begun to watch, to listen, and to wonder what this strange Deathworld-born species might do next. The following day, the assembly convened again. Aaron Hale returned to the central platform, his arm still healing, his face showing signs of sleepless hours. The unknown object had not moved closer, but sensors indicated it was still observing. The delegates were nervous, whispering constantly. Some were angry that humans had taken a leadership role. Others were simply afraid of the silence of the massive object beyond the station. Aaron began his speech. "I will not hide the truth of humanity. We are a species that has survived against great odds. Our world is harsh, and our history is filled with conflict. Yet, we endure because we learn from our failures. We adapt, we cooperate, and we protect those we care about." The chamber was quiet. Some delegates leaned forward, listening closely. Others sat stiffly, their multi-layered eyes blinking in doubt. One of the senior members, a tall being with translucent skin, raised a hand. "You speak of survival, yet your species has also fought wars that killed millions. How can we trust such creatures?" Aaron did not flinch. "Trust must be earned," he said. "I do not ask for blind faith. I only ask that you consider what humans can do when they work with others. My actions yesterday were proof. I risked my life not to harm, but to save. That is how humans choose to act." Murmurs spread through the chamber. A few delegates whispered about human recklessness, but many more began to see the calm courage in his actions. Some seemed unsettled by the idea that a single human had achieved what their entire security teams could not. Before the discussion could continue, alarms rang again. This time, the outer sensors indicated that a section of the station's docking bay was failing. Reports said that several cargo modules containing energy cells were overheating. The delegates panicked, some shouting for immediate evacuation. Many species had no experience with containment failures like this. Aaron's years on Earth had taught him that fear made creatures weaker, not stronger. Without hesitation, he ran toward the docking bay. Security shouted orders, but he ignored them. He arrived to find smoke rising from one of the modules. Flames were small, but if they reached the energy cells, the resulting explosion could destroy the entire bay. Aaron assessed the situation and realized that the automated fire suppression system was malfunctioning. He moved carefully but quickly. The heat pressed against him, making it difficult to breathe. He lifted debris blocking the manual valves and activated the suppression system by hand. Sparks flew as circuits overloaded, and a hot panel fell, grazing his shoulder. He ignored the pain, keeping his focus on the immediate danger. The smoke and heat were thick, yet he managed to stabilize the system. The modules cooled, preventing a catastrophic explosion. When the fire alarms finally stopped, he looked around. Security and several delegates had arrived. Their eyes widened at what he had done. Some species whispered among themselves, clearly shocked that a single human could act in such dangerous circumstances without hesitation. Back in the assembly chamber, news of Aaron's actions had already spread. The silence was heavy. Delegates were unsure whether to fear or respect this human. One of the oldest members, a being with dark, reflective skin, spoke slowly. This human faces death, calmly, and saves others. Is it courage or madness? Aaron's voice echoed in response. It is survival and responsibility. We cannot always wait for rules to guide us. Sometimes we must act for the greater good. The assembly debated his words. Many delegates had seen humans as fragile creatures, shaped by an unstable world. Yet Aaron's actions proved that they were far more than simple survivors. He was intelligent, decisive, and willing to take risks for the benefit of others. Slowly, opinions began to shift. Fear did not vanish, but respect was growing. Later, private whispers reached Aaron. Some delegates warned him that not all in the assembly trusted humans. Certain factions believed Earth should remain isolated, fearing the strength and unpredictability of its people. They saw humans as too dangerous to interact with closely. Aaron listened without anger. He had expected such resistance. Suddenly, the observation deck signaled new readings. The unknown object outside the station had begun subtle movement. It shifted slowly, almost deliberately. Energy readings spiked in certain areas, yet there was no attack. The assembly grew tense, unsure whether to prepare for defense or wait for further signs. Aaron approached the council. "Do not act out of fear," he said. "Observe and gather information. Let us understand before we strike. Panic will only invite disaster." Some delegates resisted. They wanted to launch immediate attacks, fearing that hesitation would allow the object to strike first. Aaron argued with calm logic, demonstrating the risks of uncoordinated action. He moved between stations, explaining the patterns and signals recorded by sensors. Slowly, the tension in the room eased. Observation and preparation became the priority. Over the next few hours, Aaron coordinated teams from multiple species. They launched probes, adjusted energy shields, and monitored the object's behavior. Unlike others, Aaron did not rely on machines alone. His experience in survival situations allowed him to anticipate reactions that technology might not detect. Delegates began to see his unique perspective as invaluable. As night approached on the station, Aaron stood on the observation deck. The unknown object floated silently against the backdrop of stars. It was massive and alien, yet it had not attacked. Aaron considered the lessons from Earth. Patience, strategy, and understanding often outweighed brute force. He knew that humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons, but in intelligence, resilience, and the willingness to act when others could not. The assembly continued to debate the object's nature. Some feared it might be intelligent, others assumed it was a machine or natural phenomenon. Aaron's calm leadership allowed for careful planning rather than chaos. His words and actions slowly influenced more delegates. They began to recognize that humans were not reckless survivors, but creatures capable of measured judgment and courage under pressure. By the end of the day, a plan was in place. The assembly would continue to observe, maintain defenses, and communicate cautiously with the unknown object. Aaron had earned the trust of several species, though fear still lingered. Yet one thing was certain: humanity would no longer be ignored. They had shown that they could act decisively, think clearly, and face dangers that would paralyze others. Aaron's eyes moved from the massive object to the stars beyond. He understood that this was only the beginning. Earth was far from the center of the galaxy, yet its people had already begun to make a mark. The first human ambassador knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, yet he also knew that humans could endure, adapt, and act where others hesitated. For the first time, the galaxy began to see what Deathworld-born humans could truly achieve. The following cycle, the assembly was restless. News came that outposts near the outer edge of the system had gone silent. Communication links failed, and energy signatures were missing. Panic spread quickly among the delegates. Many species had never experienced such sudden losses. They assumed the worst. Aaron Hale remained calm. He had seen humans survive far worse on their own planet. He understood that fear often caused more mistakes than the danger itself. Moving to the observation deck, he looked at the stars where the outposts had been. The sensors were showing anomalies, massive energy fluctuations that could disable entire ships. He knew the assembly fleets could not respond fast enough to stop the first strike if it came. Immediate decisions were needed. The assembly debated what to do. Many leaders argued about sending fleets to investigate, while others suggested abandoning the outer systems to protect the station. Chaos grew as factions argued. Aaron listened carefully, then stepped forward. His voice, calm but firm, filled the chamber. "We cannot wait for certainty," he said. "We do not have the luxury of time. Immediate action is required. Observation alone will not protect us. Panic will destroy more than the unknown threat." Some delegates resisted. They feared humans, fearing their boldness. Yet Aaron had proven in past crises that he acted without selfishness and that humans understood risk in ways others did not. Slowly, the chamber quieted, letting him continue. Aaron suggested a plan. He would coordinate observation teams, establish forward defense positions, and allow individual outposts to act with autonomy. Instead of sending the fleets all at once, which could be destroyed, smaller groups would move quickly, using human-inspired rapid response tactics. Delegates looked at him skeptically but had no better plan. He moved from station to station, explaining the plan to teams from multiple species. He used simple terms, making sure each member understood the risks and the goals. Many were impressed at how quickly he adapted to alien systems and integrated diverse species into coordinated action. Hours passed. Reports came in that some outposts had been disabled by sudden energy surges. Ships had lost power but were mostly intact. Aaron worked tirelessly to analyze the energy signatures and coordinate rescue operations. He guided species unfamiliar with human-style problem-solving, showing them when to act and when to wait. Slowly, they began to follow his direction. A massive energy pulse swept across the system. Several ships went dark. The unknown object, larger than anything recorded before, had approached closer than expected. Panic threatened to overwhelm the assembly again. Many delegates wanted to fire first, without understanding the object. Aaron intervened. "Stop," he commanded. "We do not know its intentions. We must gather information first. Acting without knowledge will cost thousands of lives. Patience and observation are our only advantages now. Reluctantly, the delegates obeyed. The assembly's sensors fed information to Aaron's team. His calculations showed that the object responded to energy patterns, almost like it was learning. Any aggressive action could provoke it. He instructed the teams to adjust shields, monitor its movements, and report every change immediately. By nightfall, a clearer picture emerged. The object was massive, dark, and covered in panels that shifted slowly. Energy output fluctuated, but never attacked. Aaron realized it was intelligent, but cautious. It observed reactions and tested defenses. Any mistake could trigger disaster. Delegates watched silently as he analyzed the data. Aaron briefed the assembly. This is not a mindless threat. It is intelligent and adaptive. Our best strategy is controlled observation and measured action. We cannot assume aggression. But we must be prepared for it. Several delegates nodded slowly. Fear remained, but a sense of trust in the human ambassador began to form. For the first time, they saw a species capable of surviving extreme danger while protecting others and making clear decisions. Suddenly, a new signal appeared. A probe from the station had been partially disabled. Its energy signature warped. Aaron quickly adjusted shields and sent backup units. He worked alongside alien engineers, showing them techniques to stabilize the probe. They watched in amazement as he operated calmly under extreme pressure. The unknown object remained silent and slow, yet each movement suggested it was learning from their actions. Aaron instructed teams to maintain consistent responses and avoid panic signals. Slowly, the station gained some control over the situation. Delegates began to trust his judgment, relying on his calm and methodical approach. By the end of the cycle, the assembly had organized a coordinated observation network. Aaron had convinced multiple species to follow his plan, ensuring that the outer system could be monitored without provoking unnecessary aggression. His presence and leadership had prevented chaos from becoming catastrophe. Standing on the observation deck, Aaron watched the stars. The unknown object floated silently, immense and enigmatic. He considered the lessons from Earth. Humans survived not because they were strongest, but because they adapted, acted decisively, and protected others. This same principle applied here. Observation, strategy, and calm action could save the galaxy just as they had saved his planet countless times. The assembly no longer saw humans as fragile Deathworlders. They saw a species capable of leadership, courage, and intelligence beyond expectation. Aaron knew the journey was only beginning. There were greater challenges ahead, threats that would test every skill humanity possessed. Yet he also knew that humans, born on a harsh world, could endure and act when others could not. As the stars shifted beyond the observation deck, Aaron prepared for the next phase. The unknown object's intentions were still unclear, but one thing was certain. Humanity's first ambassador had shown the galaxy that humans were more than survivors. They were protectors, thinkers, and leaders, and the galaxy would soon have to acknowledge it fully. The following day, the assembly faced a new crisis. Sensor readings confirmed that the unknown object was heading directly toward Earth's system. Panic spread among the delegates. Many species had assumed the object would ignore human worlds, yet its trajectory suggested otherwise. Ships scrambled to prepare defenses, and alarms rang across the station. The tension in the chamber was near breaking point. Aaron Hale stood at the center of the platform. He had spent long hours studying the object's patterns. Unlike others, he did not panic. Humans had survived storms, earthquakes, and conflicts that destroyed nations. He understood that fear could cloud judgment. He looked around at the assembly and spoke in a calm, firm voice. "We cannot assume hostility without evidence," he said. "We must prepare, yes, but we must also observe. Acting rashly will invite destruction. Patience and strategy are our strongest weapons." A tall delegate with sharp, reflective eyes stood up. "We have no time for patience. If this object reaches Earth, it will destroy everything. Your human world is defenseless." Aaron shook his head. "Earth is not defenseless. Humans survive because they adapt, because they understand risks and act decisively. We can protect ourselves, but we must act intelligently. Cooperation with this assembly is our best chance." Some delegates whispered, uncertain if the human could be trusted. Yet others, who had seen his actions in previous crises, nodded slowly. They remembered the calm, precise way he had stabilized the station, saved delegates, and coordinated responses. They had begun to see humanity not as fragile or reckless, but as capable and resilient. Aaron quickly coordinated with engineers, scientists, and military leaders from multiple species. He divided teams into observation, defense, and support groups. Each group had specific instructions: monitor the object's energy signatures, maintain shields, and prepare contingency plans. Unlike others, Aaron emphasized flexibility. Decisions had to be made on the spot, not delayed by bureaucracy. Reports began to arrive from Earth's system. Satellites detected energy surges along the path of the object. Entire communication arrays flickered and failed. Panic threatened to overwhelm human scientists on the planet, but Aaron contacted them directly. He guided them in stabilizing their sensors, adjusting energy grids, and preparing defense protocols. Even from a distance, he acted decisively. Meanwhile, the assembly debated sending fleets to intercept the object. Some delegates argued it was too dangerous to wait. Others warned that attacking could provoke the unknown entity. Aaron intervened again, moving between the platforms with calm authority. "We must coordinate," he said. "A scattered attack will fail. Let us gather all the data, understand its behavior, and then act. Speed without knowledge will not save Earth." Hours passed. The object moved closer. Energy readings fluctuated unpredictably. Many species grew restless, their patience wearing thin. Aaron worked tirelessly, coordinating with humans and aliens alike. He observed patterns, noting how the object responded to energy shifts, shield manipulations, and communication attempts. His understanding of survival and adaptability gave him insights others lacked. Late in the cycle, a small faction of the assembly demanded immediate attack. They argued that humanity was too weak to survive alone. Aaron faced them directly, his voice calm but firm. "Do not speak as if humanity is powerless. We survive because we understand risk, because we act decisively when others hesitate. If you attack blindly, you risk everything. Trust that we can face this challenge with intelligence, not rash force." Some delegates nodded slowly, recalling the countless times he had acted without hesitation in dangerous situations. They began to see that humans did not act recklessly, but with calculated courage and strategy. Slowly, the tide of opinion shifted in his favor. At the same time, Aaron contacted Earth's Defense Council. "Prepare all systems for rapid deployment," he instructed. "Do not fire without confirmation. We observe, analyze, and then respond." Human engineers, under his guidance, worked quickly, adjusting planetary defenses, stabilizing energy grids, and preparing evacuation protocols if necessary. The unknown object reached the edge of Earth's system. Its size was massive, dwarfing known planets and moons. Energy fields radiated unpredictably. Sensors detected signals that suggested it was studying every move, learning how to respond. Panic surged among human and alien observers alike. Aaron remained calm. He moved from team to team, coordinating adjustments to shields and energy flows. He directed human fleets to spread out and act independently when required, using strategies developed for high-risk survival on Earth. His ability to combine human ingenuity with alien technology gave the defenders a crucial advantage. Finally, the object moved closer, slower than expected. It did not attack directly, but emitted pulses of energy that tested shields and communication systems. Aaron instructed careful responses, adjusting energy flows to absorb the pulses without triggering aggression. Observers watched in awe as the human ambassador guided an entire multi-species defense without panic. Hours passed in tense silence. The object did not retreat, but it also did not strike lethally. Its behavior suggested it was evaluating the responses. Aaron analyzed every pulse, every fluctuation. He predicted its next movements and coordinated adjustments accordingly. Slowly, he established a rhythm that allowed the station and Earth defenses to anticipate and counter the energy surges. Delegates began to whisper among themselves. Some admitted that humans were far more capable than they had assumed. Others remained cautious, but had no choice but to follow Aaron's lead. The object, enormous and alien, continued its slow observation, but the human ambassador's calm and strategic guidance had prevented disaster. At the end of the cycle, Aaron gathered the assembly and Earth representatives. "We have stabilized the system," he said. "The object is still unknown, but it has not attacked lethally. Observation and coordinated response have kept us safe. This is proof that humans can survive and protect others even under extreme pressure." The chamber was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, delegates began to nod. Some spoke words of approval, while others remained cautious. Yet one fact was clear. Humanity had earned the respect of the galaxy. They were no longer simply survivors of a death world. They were protectors, strategists, and leaders. Aaron looked at the stars beyond the station. The unknown object remained, immense and silent. Yet humanity had shown that they could survive, adapt, and act where others might falter. The galaxy had begun to understand that humans were not reckless or weak. They were extraordinary, capable of courage, intelligence, and decisive action that could influence the fate of worlds. Aaron's thoughts returned to Earth. His people had endured much, and now they faced challenges that stretched across the stars. Yet he knew that humans could rise to meet them. They could lead, protect, and survive where others might fail. The first human ambassador had not only safeguarded a system, but he had shown the galaxy what humans could truly do when faced with impossible odds. The unknown object hovered silently at the edge of Earth's system. Ships from multiple species were on high alert, their energy shields glowing faintly as they followed Aaron Hale's precise instructions. Despite the size and power of the object, no one dared to attack directly. Its patterns were strange, almost deliberate, and any wrong move could trigger disaster. Aaron stood on the command deck of the main fleet ship, calm as always. His mind worked quickly, analyzing every energy pulse, every shift in the object's movement. He had guided humans and aliens alike through multiple crises, and he knew that success required patience, observation, and swift action when the time came. Delegates watched from communication links, their eyes wide with anticipation. Some whispered that humans were reckless, but most had already seen enough to know that Aaron's calm decisions saved lives and stabilized entire systems. He had earned their trust. Suddenly, the object emitted a massive energy pulse. It did not attack directly, but it disrupted communications and sensors across the fleet. Ships rocked, alarms blared, and panic threatened to spread. Aaron acted instantly. He directed shields to redistribute energy, ordered small ships to maneuver out of the pulse's path, and stabilized the central command arrays. His hands moved with speed and precision, adjusting controls as if he had done this 100 times before. The fleets responded. Energy grids hummed, shields held steady, and the pulse passed without catastrophic damage. Observers were silent, amazed at the coordination. Aaron did not pause. He continued to adjust, predicting the next pulse, keeping every ship in sync with his commands. His knowledge of survival, strategy, and risk from Earth proved invaluable in this high-stakes situation. Hours passed. The unknown object continued its slow, deliberate movement, testing defenses, analyzing responses. Aaron worked tirelessly, coordinating human and alien teams, stabilizing energy flows, and ensuring no mistakes were made. Each pulse, each energy fluctuation was met with calm, measured responses. The fleet remained intact, and Earth's system held steady. Delegates began to realize that humans were not just survivors. They were leaders, thinkers, and protectors. Aaron's actions had shown that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act with clarity and precision when others might falter. The galaxy was witnessing a Deathworlder guiding multi-species fleets through unknown dangers without hesitation. Finally, the object slowed its approach. Sensors indicated that it was observing but not attacking. Aaron studied its patterns and energy responses, realizing that it was intelligent, learning from their actions and assessing whether they posed a threat. He briefed the assembly through secure communication channels. "This is not a mindless destroyer," he said calmly. "It is cautious, intelligent, and adaptive. Our survival depends not on aggression, but on patience, observation, and coordinated action. We must maintain control of our emotions and follow our plans precisely." The delegates nodded, some reluctantly, others with newfound respect. Humans were no longer seen as fragile Deathworlders, but as a species capable of leadership, intelligence, and strategic thinking. Iran had proven that humans could face overwhelming odds and protect others without succumbing to fear. As the cycle progressed, minor adjustments and careful maneuvers continued. The fleets maintained position, energy grids were stabilized, and Earth's defenses remained operational. Aaron guided every action with calm authority, anticipating potential dangers and preventing mistakes before they could occur. After what felt like an eternity, the unknown object shifted slightly and then began to retreat slowly. Sensors showed no aggression, no destruction, only observation. Aaron's calculations suggested that it had assessed the human and allied defenses and concluded that Earth's system was not vulnerable to reckless attack. A wave of relief swept through the fleets and the assembly. Delegates who had doubted humans whispered among themselves, acknowledging that Aaron Hale's leadership had prevented disaster. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. A single human, born on a harsh death world, had coordinated an entire multi-species defense against an unknown intelligent entity. Iran allowed himself a brief moment of rest. He knew the object's intentions remained uncertain, but humanity had proven its ability to survive and adapt. He contacted Earth directly, ensuring all systems were stable, and communicated with the fleets, confirming that everyone was secure. The relief and gratitude in the voices of human engineers and fleet commanders were palpable. Standing on the observation deck, Aaron looked at the stars, the massive objects slowly fading into the distance. He reflected on the challenges humanity had faced and the strength that had been forged on Earth. Their harsh world had produced a species capable of courage, intelligence, and resilience beyond expectation. He knew that the galaxy would remember this day, the first time humans had proven their worth on the interstellar stage. The Assembly held a meeting to acknowledge the actions of humanity and the first ambassador. Delegates spoke cautiously, praising his courage, strategic insight, and calm leadership. Some admitted fear of humans had been replaced by respect, others still remained cautious, but there was no denying the impact of Aaron's decisions. Aaron addressed the Assembly one final time. "Humanity has endured countless challenges on Earth," he said. "We have learned to survive, to act decisively, and to protect those around us. Today, we have done the same on a larger scale. We are not here to conquer, but to cooperate, to adapt, and to survive together." The delegates remained silent, listening. Slowly, applause and acknowledgement spread. The first human ambassador had completed his mission not by force, but by demonstrating the true strength of his species. As calm returned to the fleets and the unknown object disappeared from the system, Aaron allowed himself a final thought. Humanity had survived impossible odds before, and they would continue to do so. They were not just survivors of a death world. They were leaders, protectors, and symbols of resilience. The galaxy had seen the first proof of their extraordinary nature, and now humanity's story among the stars had truly begun.